Also have new reporting about Donald Trump's business interests that may come as a surprise to our next guest. Let's bring in Iowa Congressman Steve King. He has endorsed Donald Trump. Congressman, thank you for joining us. Let's start off with child care.
Thank you.
Let's put up the Trump plan. Just some of the highlights. Obviously, it's more involved than this. Expand the eligible tax deductible on child care expenses, guarantee 6-week maternity leave, retool the federal savings accounts to cover child care and educational costs. These are not things that the party have endorsed in the past. You were against the Paid Parental Leave Act of 2009, which tried to do some of this. Do you support Trump's plan?
Well, and on its face, there's parts of it that I want to dig in a little deeper and see how this all fits together, Chris. Generally, we have the Family Leave Act, which allows for 6 weeks of time off when a baby's born to an I've been on both sides of that. We had babies born into my construction office before that act was passed and after. And it did change the relationship between myself and my employees. But we've raised babies in my construction office. We've allowed our workers on occasion to work from home. And we encourage mothers to have babies and have babies and raise them right. It's the best thing that can happen. So I support the deductibility of the child care expenses because it's the equivalent of a legitimate business expense. When you get to the point of, let's just say, borrowing money from China in order to pay somebody's babysitter, that's a different equation, and I think we've got to have a deeper debate about that.
All right, so you're with some of it, you're against some of it. How about how he says he's going to pay for it? In all your time in Congress, have you ever seen anything get paid for by taking waste and fraud out of any system?
Well, I remember when I came here as a freshman a number of years ago, we were going to attack waste, fraud, and abuse. That was the marching orders, and I recall at the time thinking, I've heard this before in the state Senate. So waste, fraud, and abuse has long been a political target, but it's seldom. In fact, Barack Obama said he found $500 billion in fraud in Medicare, and he was going to clean that all up. Well, he did cut Medicare, but I don't know that we found the fraud. So, no, I'm not that convinced that we can find enough fraud to pay for that. And if we could, we should have been using that to reduce our national debt.
So what do you say to Mr. Trump, who says, not only am I going to add many billions of dollars to the budget by doing my plan, but I'll pay for it with waste, fraud, and abuse? What's your answer to that?
Let's find the waste, fraud, and abuse, Mr. Trump, and I'm happy to go to work on that. But I think we need to look at this thing in the whole package, and I'd like to see and hear more discussion about how we get to balance. That's got to be the number one thing, rather than expanding here. Let's get to balance. But the proposal about supporting mothers and fathers and families and encouraging more babies in this country, that is good, and anything he might do with I would encourage him to promote the expansion of families, because if we don't have more babies than we have funerals, we're going to end up like Europe, and we'll be in a situation where we're importing a culture that may be alien to the values of the American way of life.
Two quick things. So you would suggest to Mr. Trump that you've never heard of a plan being paid for the way he's suggesting to pay for this one. True?
Well, I've heard of a lot of plans that were going to be paid for by
but you've never seen it happen. All right. I just want to make that clear. And the second one, when you say encourage families, more babies and all that, would you include the LGBT community in that, in terms of families to encourage having kids and expanding them? Obviously, Mike Pence, as the Indiana governor and running mate, may weigh in on that decision. Would you be open to this meeting all families?
I want to respect all people, but I want to promote the natural family, Chris, and I think that's the most wholesome thing that we can do. And
what's the natural family? What's the natural family in your opinion?
Is a man and a woman joined together, hopefully in holy matrimony, blessed by God with children.
But you do know that even on a scientific level, when we look at social research, they're finding out more and more that babies adopted in to LGBT families are doing just as well, if not better, than what you call a natural family. What does that suggest to you?
I think I'd need to look a little further into some of that research, and you know, we got down the global warming argument and found out there was another side to that equation too. So no, I'm not looking at that research. I would want to look at it, and as I say, I want to respect all human persons. We're all gifts from God, but I want to encourage the natural family. That's the best and most wholesome way to raise a child, and that's been the case throughout thousands of years of human history, and I think we need to go with the things we know work.
Right, but what we know that what works is loving the kid, giving them the attention, giving them the time. There is no reason to believe that you have to have a man and a woman to do that. And if we see anything with the breakdown family. The man and the woman thing has its own shortfalls, right? Look at the divorce rate, look at single-parent families, look at all the destruction of children and family welfare in this country. It doesn't seem like a sure thing. Why not encourage anything that gets a child loved and provided for?
Chris, I just don't think it's true that there's no reason to believe that a child needs a man and a woman to raise them. A child needs a father and a mother to raise them.
No, I didn't say there's no reason to believe it. I'm saying there's plenty of reason to believe it's not the only way it can be done well. That's what I'm saying.
I say the evidence is very heavy on the other side of this thing. To have a role model as a man in the home, have a role model as a woman in the home, especially a model of a father and a mother that are joined together and working together in a team, that is the best way that we can hope that all children are raised. And so I'm not discouraging or disparaging anyone, but I'm suggesting we should put our energy into promoting the model that has worked, and that is the natural family, or you could call it the nuclear family. And that's what the research that I see supports. And that's the human experience that we have for hundreds and hundreds of years.
I will send you some research. It's an important discussion to have. Let's end on one thing that's a little bit more close to the campaign. This Newsweek article that came out, do you know anything about Donald Trump's organization and its ties to foreign businesses?
Well, very little. Just sketchy things.
Does
that
it concern you? What's in this piece, when you take a look at it and your staffers digest it, if he has these kinds of entanglements with foreign businesses and companies and countries, which would make perfect sense, he's a global organization, isn't that something you need to examine if this man is going to be the leader of the free world?
Well, I would say this, not having examined this article, I would say we've learned by watching especially the Clinton campaign and the Clinton family for several decades now, it's important to play your cards face up. If you don't play your cards face up when you're in the scrutiny of the candidacy for the presidency or the President of the United States, eventually your credibility erodes to the point where you can't give a message to the American people and expect them to accept it. So that would be my suggestion to the Trump campaign. Play the cards face up. Let's have an open discussion about this. I think Hillary Clinton should divulge her medical records. I think that Donald Trump should divulge his medical records. Let's see all of this, because the destiny of the free world is hanging in the balance here on November 8th.
All right, does that go for taxes as well?
I would have said yes. In fact, I did say yes to that last spring, March and April, with a $10 billion business. If Donald Trump dumped his taxes out today, there would be all kinds of, let me say, misinterpretations of that, and maybe some real interpretations of that between now and November. That'd be the only discussion we'd have. So I say the window is closed on that, but I wish he had done so, say, last March or April.
So much for playing your cards face up, Congressman, except when it comes to the only cards you might not like to see.
Congressman, I'm on record, however, saying that back then.
No, it's an interesting position. Congressman King, thank you for joining us. Appreciate having you on New Day, sir.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.